Oh, I'll call you back. Sorry, I didn't see you there. How are you? Welcome to Philosophy 221 post-Thanksgiving break, Philosophy and Film. There wasn't really anybody on the phone. I just thought it was nice theatrics to welcome you back. They delivered this phone in my office over the break, but it's connected to nothing, so seems reasonable, I guess. So, nice little prop to work with in these little films. And it also, I think, sets us up nicely for our week's discussion. Because this week we turn our focus to humor and comedy. And I purposefully put this in at the end of the semester where, we've done a decent amount of work in this class. And I know that it's been fairly incongruent at times, or it feels maybe a bit disjointed, but we really have kind of come a long way, right? We've talked about the philosophy of love, we've talked about metaphysics, we talked about the nature of fear, we've talked about existentialism, and then along the way, we've watched all those films to kind of, conjoin or at least kind of offer us avenues worthy of considering as it related to all of those topics. And then this week, leading into the final week, next week of class, and next week of class is our final week, and I'll say more in the videos when we get there. But this week in particular, we're turning our focus to comedy or humor, and I felt like it was a fair thing to kind of end the class on for the fact that it allows us to maybe leave the class feeling a little bit more lighthearted. It allows us to leave the class, or at least kind of round out the class, maybe in a little bit better spirits than we would have, had we looked at the nature of fear in our final couple of weeks in the class, or existentialism for that matter. And so, as we start to orient ourselves this week, and as we start to kind of get into the topic, I really want us to kind of consider these questions, consider these generalities here of thinking about, well, what is the purpose of humor? What is the purpose of comedy, right? Maybe not even the purpose, but maybe even backtrack just for a second here. What is humor? What is comedy? Okay? And then kind of turning that focus and turning that question to, well, what are and what is the purpose of humor and comedy, right? Why do we watch humorous films, right? Why do we seek out stand-up comedy if you seek out stand-up comedy? What is it that you find funny in various situations, in various scenarios, right? How do we distinguish, or why do we distinguish that some things are comical and other things aren't, right? There's a whole spectrum here that allows us to ask, many, I think, interesting and rewarding questions, okay? And so that's where we're going to go this week, is I want us to kind of get situated, get oriented to the topic of thinking about, well, what is humor? What is comedy? And again, what is the motivation? What is the purpose for it? Why do we seek it out? And is there or might there be kind of more profound things to take away as it relates to examining the nature of humor and the nature of comedy? And so that's where we're going to go this week. And so you'll see a couple of other kind of video lectures from me today and Thursday, along with supplemental material. And I would highly encourage you to watch the supplemental material here, because not only might it be mildly comical and entertaining, but it also should be informative and kind of penetrates a little bit deeper into the fact of looking into the nature of humor, right? That, we have slapstick comedy, right? When somebody just kind of gets hit over the head and boing like that, right? That's not all too kind of, profound to consider. But what about those moments in comedy that speak to social and cultural critique, that speak to the absurdity of existence? And I remember reading, and some of you that came to class, but I remember there were a handful of comments after the movie I Heart Huckabees that some of you were like, that movie was so funny, okay? And some of you didn't like that movie at all. So what was it for those that thought it was so funny? Why? Okay? And similarly, the question of asking, if those didn't think it was funny, well, why? Right? So this is kind of, again, a little bit of the space that I want to start to engage with, and we'll pick that up in the next video.